All right, good afternoon. I will start off with a trip announcement from the Secretary General, which will surprise no one. The Secretary General is on his way to Brazil to attend the G20 meeting, as he does every year, and that will take place on the 18th and 19th of November. At the G20, the Secretary General will address sessions on social inclusion and the fight against hunger and poverty, the reform of global governance institutions, as well as sustainable development and energy transitions. In Rio, the Secretary General will hold a bilateral meeting with President Inácio Lula da Silva of Brazil. He will also meet with other leaders and who will be in attendance at the G20. We will, as always, update you on the bilaterals as they happen. From Brazil, the Secretary General will return to Baku for the closing of the 29th Conference of Parties of the UN Framework on Climate Change, otherwise known as COP29. Also on climate, I want to flag that our colleagues at the UN Environment Programme have released a new report today entitled Eye on Methane, Invisible but Not Unseen. The report highlights that despite commitments under the Global Methane Pledge to slash emissions by 30% by 2030, alerts from the Methane Alert and Response System represent an untapped opportunity for immediate climate action. The report adds that the alert system that identifies major methane leaks has delivered 1,200 notifications to governments and companies over the last 2 years, yet just 1% of notifications were actually responded to. The head of UNEP, Inger Anderson, said that to have any chance of getting global warming under control, methane emissions must come down, and they must come down fast. We know we have a proven system to identify major leaks so they can be quickly stopped. The tools are ready, the targets are set, and now it's time to act, she said. The full report is online. Our Undersecretary General for Peace Operations, Jean-Pierre Lacroix, is concluding his 4-day visit to Lebanon and Israel today. In Israel, together with the head of UNSO, Major General Patrick Gosha, he met with senior officials of Israel's Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the head of Israel Defense Forces International Cooperation Division, as well as the IDF Northern Commander. All those meetings took place in Jerusalem and in the northern city of Metula at the Blue Line, where he reiterated calls to uphold the centrality of Resolution 1701. Meanwhile, our peacekeeping forces in South Lebanon report that one of their patrols near Kalawiya noticed a cache of ammunitions near the roadway. After informing the Lebanese armed forces of the discovery, peacekeepers continued on their planned route. A short while later, while they got out of their vehicles to remove some debris from a roadway, when getting back into their vehicles, 2 or 3 unknown people fired approximately 30 shots in their directions. The peacekeepers fired back from their vehicles and moved to safety. No one was hurt, and there was no damage to the vehicles. The peacekeepers, as we have said repeatedly, must never be a target. All actors reminded of their obligations to ensure the safety and security of peacekeepers. We're also aware of media reports and claims by parties about strikes outside of UNIFIL's area of operations, both in Lebanon and in Israel. The increasing impact on civilians remains of grave concern, and we condemn all civilian loss of lives. As we've been saying, parties to the conflict must adhere to international law and protect civilians and civilian infrastructure. We continue to support efforts towards a ceasefire and a diplomatic solution. On the humanitarian front in Lebanon, our colleagues confirmed that 2 convoys delivered essential medical supplies, hygiene, and dignity kits to 2 hospitals, as well as a primary health care clinic in the Baalbek Hermel Governorate. And a 3rd convoy went to Sarafan in southern Lebanon Governorate with supplies to support the rehabilitation of primary health care center that had suffered severe damages in the recent fighting because of airstrikes. Yesterday, the World Health Organization, UNICEF, and the Lebanese Ministry of Public Health launched a national vaccination campaign to protect children under 10 from polio, measles, rubella, and mumps. The campaign will run until the end of the year. Meanwhile, the Office of the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs continues to be alarmed by the mounting human toll of Israeli airstrikes in densely populated areas around the country. Yesterday, in the Bekaa and Baalbek regions in the east of Lebanon, sustained heavy airstrikes, with one hitting a Lebanese civil defense center in Doris in the Baalbek Hermel Governorate. According to what the authorities are telling us, 13 volunteers and rescuers were killed in the attack, and several are still missing. The parties to the conflict everywhere must also take all feasible precautions to protect civilians and civilian objects under their control against any attacks against civilians. Turning south to Gaza, the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs confirms that several displaced Palestinians were killed during the attacks in the Al-Mawasi area in central Gaza today. Hostilities continue across the Strip, including in North Gaza Governorate, which is still under Israeli siege. Our partners report that between 65,000 and 75,000 Palestinians remain in North Gaza Governorate. OCHA says the conditions in besieged areas are inhuman, given the scale of death, destruction, and deprivation over the past 5 weeks. Once again, OCHA stresses that civilians must be protected, whether they move or stay. Civilians must be allowed to leave for safer areas, and they must be permitted to return as soon as the circumstances allow. OCHA reiterates that civilians must be able to receive humanitarian assistance they need wherever they are. All of this is required by an international humanitarian law. The World Health Organization, for its part, tells us that Israeli authorities continue to deny the agency's request to access the Kamal Adwan and the Al-Auda hospitals in North Gaza Governorate. Last week, all 3 attempts to deploy an international emergency medical team to Kamal Adwan were blocked. WHO is planning missions in the coming days to deploy another team and to deliver medical supplies, as well as 10,000 liters of fuel. Our health partners are also planning a 2-day mission to expand services in Gaza Governorate. Meanwhile, OCHA reports that the ongoing Israeli siege in North Gaza is having a devastating impact on acutely malnourished children there. Our partners working on nutrition say they've had to stop all activities in North Gaza Governorate, including the treatment of children for acute malnutrition, as well as supplementary feeding for children and pregnant breastfeeding women. UNICEF has also pre-positioned supplies for treating acute malnutrition in the north through the year's end. For their part, World Food Program has dispatched nearly 200 metric tons of supplementary food supplies to North and South Gaza to meet people's needs this month. OCHA tells us that our partners report that as many as 375,000 men, women, and children are sheltering in the Gaza Governorate as people continue to flee hostilities further north. Conditions in Gaza City are overcrowded and basic services are stretched to a breaking point. We also... And in terms of the update for you on the medical evacuations from Gaza, on Wednesday, WHO and its partners supported the medical evacuation of 8 children and 6 of their companions from Gaza into Jordan, where they will receive specialized treatment. From there, they will go to the U.S. to receive specialized treatment. WHO says that since October of last year, only about a quarter of the more than 21,000 requests to evacuate patients outside of Gaza have been approved. Once again, we call for the establishment of evacuation corridors and for all possible routes to be used for the safe and timely passage of all patients who need specialized care. An update from Mali, where today the head of our Department of Operational Support, Under Secretary General Atul Kare, is in Bamako, where the last remaining site of the former peacekeeping mission in Mali, UNISFA, was officially handed over to the transition government of Mali. The Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation of that government, Abdoulaye Diop, and the governor of the Bamako district, Abdoulaye Coulibaly, attended a ceremony and assumed responsibility for the camp on behalf of the Malian authorities. The liquidation process was expedited thanks to the close collaboration with the Malian transitional government, and the completion date moved forward from December 31st, 2024. All remaining liquidation personnel are set to depart Mali by that date. This adjustment aligns with a decision by the General Assembly at the request of the Malian government. In a meeting after the ceremony, the Transitional Prime Minister, Choguel Maïga, thanked Mr. Kari for the smooth liquidation process in Mali. And you will recall that the peacekeeping mission in Mali completed its withdrawal at the end of last year. In a statement we issued at the time, we expressed our appreciation for the commitment and service of the troop contributing and the police contributing countries in very difficult circumstances. And the Secretary General also underscored the key role the mission played in supporting the peace efforts and protecting civilians. The Secretary General paid tribute to the 311 peacekeepers who lost their lives and the more than 700 who were injured in the cause of peace during the 10 years the mission was deployed in Mali. Quick update for you from Sudan, where in Jazirah state close to Khartoum, the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs warns that armed violence is putting the lives of tens of thousands of people at risk. The International Organization for Migration reports that in less than a month, more than 343,000 men, women, and children have been displaced across Jazirah amid escalating clashes and continued insecurity. Most have fled to neighboring state of Gadaref as well as Kassala, where we and our humanitarian partners are working with host communities to provide emergency assistance. Last week, OCHA carried out assessments in both states. Many of the displaced had walked for days and arrived with nothing but the clothes on their back. They are now sheltering in the open, and the people sheltering in the open include children, women, older persons, and people who are sick. Those people who have fled from the fighting in Jazirah urgently need tents, plastic sheets, heaters, mattresses, medicines, food, and milk for younger children. On top of that, OCHA observed an increase in cholera cases at the cholera treatment center in Gadaref following the latest wave of displacement. And in terms of what is going on in Darfur, following the Sudanese government's decision to keep the Adre crossing open, which, as you will recall, the Secretary General, of course, welcomed. I can tell you that the World Food Program reports that for the first time in months, 3 WFP convoys carrying essential food and nutrition assistance are on their way to Sudan's Zamzam displacement camp in North Darfur, as well as Kaduli in South Kordofan. The trucks going to South Kordofan will deliver aid for some 10,000 people. The trucks bound for Zamzam are carrying assistance for nearly 40,000 people, including nutrition supplements for malnourished children. The first convoy heading to the camp crossed into Sudan via Adre on Saturday, November 9th. The second convoy to Zamzam left Port Sudan on Tuesday, and today those trucks reached Daba, a critical corridor for cross-line aid that's about 850 kilometers from Port Sudan. WFP calls for the safe passage of these convoys to areas that have been largely cut off from aid since the start of the conflict, especially in Zamzam, where, as you know, famine was confirmed last August. As we've repeatedly said, it is critical that we and our partners are able to deliver life-saving assistance safely and swiftly by all available routes, both cross-border and cross-line, to reach people in need wherever they are. And in staying in the region and in Abyei, our UNISFA colleagues, the peacekeepers there, strongly condemned today the recent killings in Abyei town, which have resulted in the death of 5 people, including a member of the Community Protection Committee. The UN mission said it has intensified security measures in Abyei, reinforcing its commitment to protecting civilians and upholding the rule of law. The peacekeeping mission calls on all relevant authorities to conduct a swift investigation onto the attack and to hold the perpetrators accountable. And as the people of Senegal prepare to vote in legislative elections this Sunday, the head of our Office for West Africa and the Sahel, Leonardo Santos Shimao, calls on all national actors to remain mobilized to maintain a peaceful environment. He also urges political leaders and candidates and their supporters to refrain from any action likely to incite violence, the use of hate speech, before, during, and after the elections. Mr. Shimao reaffirmed the continued support of the UN to Senegal and expresses hope for the peaceful and inclusive elections that will consolidate the country's democratic institutions. Two more updates, one from Ukraine. The humanitarian coordinator in Ukraine, Matthias Schmale, said in a briefing earlier today in Geneva that 12,000 civilians have been killed and 40% of the population need humanitarian assistance since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine nearly 1,000 days ago. Mr. Schmale also pointed out to the impact on the war on civilian infrastructure, with over 2,000 attacks on healthcare facilities and 2 million homes damaged or destroyed. With winter setting in, attacks on energy infrastructure will pose additional risks, especially for vulnerable people, with potential power cuts extending more than a few days into sub-zero temperature. We and our humanitarian partners continue to provide life-saving aid. This year alone, we've reached more than 7 million people with at least one type of aid, thanks to the support of our donors. Mr. Schmale said as temperatures have started to drop, humanitarians in Ukraine are implementing the Humanitarian Winter Response Plan and delivering solid fuel, ensuring water systems can continue to work, providing cash, among other activities, to ensure people can stay warm. The Winter Response Plan aims to reach 1.8 million people and requires $500 million to be fully implemented through next March. A few international days to flag. Today is the first International Day for the Prevention and Fight Against All Forms of Transnational Organized Crime. It aims to raise awareness of threats posed by organized crime and to enhance international cooperation in this regard. Tomorrow we will observe the International Day of Tolerance. Bigotry, stereotyping, stigmatizing are just a few examples of intolerance. Only tolerance can ensure the survival of mixed communities globally. And on Sunday, we will mark the World Day of Remembrance of Road Traffic Victims. In a message, the Secretary General honors the 1.19 million lives lost every year on roads worldwide. By improving infrastructure and enforcing safety laws, he says, we can make roads safer for everyone, everywhere. Drive safely. Edie, please.
Maybe you're not finished yet.
No, I'm finished.
Okay. Unless I missed it, which is possible, was there another attempt today to send convoys into northern Gaza?
I've not been given any information on any successful transits today. I know WHO had been trying and WFP, but nothing positive to report today.
Okay. And secondly, on the Secretary General, does he have any bilateral meetings planned?
No, as I said, we will update you on the bilaterals as they happen. These things are always in flux till the last minute.
Because, well, Joe Biden will be there,
Yeah.
Xi Jinping,
Yeah,
lots
I
of...
mean, quite a cast.
Yeah.
20 of them at least. Amélie.
Yes, a follow-up on that as well. Maybe I missed it as well, but is the SG planning to give a press conference at the G20?
Yes, we expect
When?
a press conference. What day's today? Friday. I believe it'll be on Sunday, but we'll give you the times and it'll be webcast. Okay. Oh, Deji, sorry. Damn.
Actually, I'm here just to show off my new shoes, but you didn't see that, so I'm going to.
Deji, very good.
I'm going to ask you a question. I'm not missing it. The incident you mentioned on UNIFIL, it seems that incident received. I mean, the reaction of UNIFIL has been criticized from both ends. There are people they're saying that for UNIFIL, it's been there for decades, and now they finally find ammunitions and to get them. And from the other side, they said, UNIFIL, now you fired back at those unknown people, but you cannot fire back at the IDF. So how are you going to explain to both sides on this incident?
First of all, I would encourage you and there's quite a library to read the reports that UNIFIL files every year to the Security Council, where you will see references to issues, to incidents when UNIFIL peacekeepers find something suspicious and report it to the Lebanese armed forces. That's their mandate. They were fired at, from what I understand, by gunfire, and they fired back. I mean, if they're put in harm's way, they will fire back. If somebody's shooting at them, they will fire back if it's necessary for their own protection. Yvonne, then Madame, and then Monsieur.
Sorry, my mic. Yeah. Is the Secretary General considering closing his X account, as some news organisations have done, and opening accounts on alternative platforms?
At this point, no. We feel that we need to be on as many platforms as possible. But obviously, we take a look at the environment regularly and make decisions accordingly. Madame Zil.
Thank you, Stéphane. Concerning the Mr. Lacroix trip in Lebanon and in Israel, does he
Can you put your microphone a little closer? Thank you.
does he hear about implementing the complete Resolution 1701 by two sides?
Well, I mean, I think, our message is for everyone who has the responsibility to fully implement 1701. I think let's put it let's put it maybe not so diplomatically. I think everybody talks a good game. The point is we need to see actual implementation. Madame Ebtissam.
Thank you. First, a follow-up on my question yesterday, whether you have update regarding the reports that some UN humanitarian organizations...
on the staff?
Yes.
No, sorry, I have not yet gotten an answer that I can share with you, but I keep digging.
And as you know, a week ago, the IPC report regarding Gaza, the latest one, came out. And in that report, they were talking about possible deaths from, or that famine in parts of northern Gaza is either happening already or about to happen in a few days. Do you have any updates?
No.
And whether you saw deaths from starvations?
No specific updates, except to know that the circumstances are all heading in the wrong direction. Monsieur Avni.
Two questions. First of all, since UNIFIL was created or not updated or strengthened as a result of a war in order to prevent another war, is its mandate, is it still valid during a war?
Its mandate is unchanged until changed by the Security Council.
I understand that, but I mean, since, as you so aptly detailed, there's a lot of dangers to the actual UNIFIL observers, and they're not there to count the bullets that go over their heads, I suppose. What exactly are they doing there during a time of war?
They're fulfilling their mandate. The 1701, which is, I will remind everyone, is a very public document, as all of the reports of UNIFIL are, calls on a number of parties to fulfill their part. It's clear that that has not happened. UNIFIL peacekeepers continue to serve bravely, literally under fire, to do their part. And frankly, I think if they weren't there, I think the situation would be worse.
Oh, interesting. And the second question, since this is Friday, it's a question I asked you before, and I have to revive it because of the situation is getting worse and worse. What's going on with the escalators?
I'm sure James asked you to ask. Like everything here, it's a little old, it's a little vintage, and hopefully they'll be put back online soon.
$2.1 billion were spent
I
on
don't think $2.1
ending
billion
that.
went into the escalators. On that note, Benny, that's my cue. Thank you. Happy Friday.